Hey y'all, this is Editor Cat here. I'm just letting you all know that I've had a sinus infection, so if you hear some extra sighs or breathing or mouth clicks or whatever, it's because I can't breathe and also, I'm sick. Anyway, thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Hey y'all, and welcome back or welcome to Moose Reads Good, the only podcast out there in this very moment that is read by a moose named Cat. I'm your host, Cat, and this week we are continuing on with Starlight by Sacrifice Them to the Squid. We are now on chapter 7, which, holy cow, how the heck did that happen? I don't know, but here we are, and we are getting so close to the end, and it's just so good. I love this story. I've read it 3 times through now, and I guess this will be my 4th time reading it through once I'm done reading it to you all, but, potato patata. Anyway, that's all I have for this morning. I'm wearing a very cute witch's hat. I have done nothing at all yet except go to the gym, so I have no dust, no glue, no yarn, nothing on me, which is quite different than normal, but the day is still young. Anyway, without much further ado, let's get into Starlight, Chapter 7, by Sacrifice Them to the Squid. When Tariel can speak, she catches up with Legolas as he moves away from the beach. You saw something out there. He frowns. The orc I pursued out of Lake Town. I know who he is. He steps around a woman trying to persuade her toddler into a dry jacket. Bolg, spawn of Azog the Defiler. A warg pack is waiting for him on the outskirts of Esgara. They fled into the north. He shakes his head. These orcs were different from the others. They bore a mark I have not seen for a long time. The mark of Gundabad. Something cold slithers down her spine. Gundabad? It's an orc stronghold in the far north of the Misty Mountains. A fortress the dwarves once tried to retake without success. He nods grimly. My Lord Legolas! They turn in unison to see an elven messenger on a tall white horse. Lake Town refugees part at his passing with open-mouthed stares. I bring word from your father. Tariel's stomach sinks. She's carefully avoiding thinking of what punishment Thranduil will deliver. You are to return to him immediately. She hears Legolas sigh, resigned. Come, Tariel. My lord, the messenger pauses. Tariel is banished. The word suddenly disappears beneath her feet. Banished? She hears Legolas ask, as if from a great distance. Her pulse thunders in her ears, a heavy rush of panic. Banished. She disobeyed her king. Thranduil is as merciless as he is generous. She knows this. She's been protected by his favor so long, part of her truly didn't think that he'd be that angry with her. But he's been furious with the dwarves and furious at the orcs, and her perceived failure with the spiders had already left him fuming. Banished. Banished. Her home, the only one she's ever known. The place of refuge after the blur of horror and smoke, where she'd slowly come back to herself and then embraced what talents Iluvatar had granted her. Thranduil had taken her in and raised her up, directing her path and bestowing his favor. She'd become agile and strong, a steadfast right hand to a king who valued absolute loyalty above all else. She had the confidence of those beneath her, and, eventually, Legolas's friendship. This is the greed of the dwarves. Yes, she'd been frustrated Thranduil hadn't allowed her beyond his borders, but it wasn't until the orcs, following the dwarves, had crossed into Mirkwood that something inside of her snapped. Perhaps she would have still followed them downriver, but she can't lie to herself. Keeley had snagged some tender, vital part of her, and she'd been helpless to resist. She hadn't known truly how lost she was until he was contorted in pain at her feet. In that moment, whatever rationalizations she'd made utterly disappeared. She's fallen in love with one of Thranduil's sworn enemies, and he's done exactly what she deserved. That has to be the reason. Merely leaving would not provoke so severe a response. She hadn't even known she was in love, but Thranduil is nothing if not perceptive. Perhaps someone had mentioned her familiarity in the dungeons, and he'd taken her reaction to the dwarf as proof. He knows. How? It matters not. The outcome is undeniable. You may tell my father that if there is no place for Tariel, there is no place for me, Legolas snaps. Legolas, she says hoarsely, it is your king's command. Yes, he is my king, he replies vehemently, but he does not command my heart. No, she cannot take him down with her. He's been her friend for centuries, as close to family as she could yet have, and if she's ruined her own life, she cannot let him ruin his. She opens her mouth to protest, but he's already checking himself for travel. I ride north, he says. Will you come with me? To where? She says automatically. To Gundabad, he frowns, face grim. The orcs found what they were looking for, although whether it's Erebor's new freedom or the dwarves themselves, I do not know. We must find out what they will do. Legolas demands the messenger's horse, a mare named Calithil. With a single sharp glance, and with a sigh, the messenger relinquishes the reins. It's one more thing that will wrinkle Thranduil, but distantly, Tariel supposes whatever disgrace she and Legolas have accrued cannot at this point get worse. With calm precision, Legolas removes the saddle and hefts it into the messenger's arms. Thank the king for his generosity, he says. The messenger glares. We ride fast and light, Legolas says to Tariel, adjusting the reins. This horse can carry two easily enough. Will you come? She almost says she has nowhere else to go, but can't. His face softens. My father does not mean it, he says quietly. He will forgive us. He will forgive you, she wants to say, but she's ringing with shock, and if she opens her mouth, she's going to cry. I know him. He will not forgive me. Her limbs are disconnected from her body, so Legolas pulls her up to ride behind him. She doesn't know the path they take. As the sun slides down toward the horizon, she leans into Legolas's back and lets the rolling gait of the horse numb her body. When Calithil finally slows to an exhausted walk, they stop for the night. The moon is a day past full. Has it only been a day? Beyond it, the stars are bright pinpricks of sparkling ice. Tariel, Legolas says, offering a leaf-wrapped cake of lembas. When she doesn't respond, he reaches over and deposits it into her hand. Eat. Mechanically, she picks apart the wrapping and focuses on the bread. It's familiar, thick and sweet, and if she were feeling anything, she'd probably be ravenous. This is not about the dwarves, he says, coming to sit by her side. They're on a small hillock in a dried floodplain. We are here for the orcs. She nods. My father is wrong, he says. You were correct. We are part of this world, and we need to protect it. Banished. Thranduil has unequivocally declared his position. She's fallen on the wrong side of it. Tariel, Legolas says again, this is not for certain. He will listen to reason. She wants to argue. She wants to scream. She wants to rail against the walls and fences Thranduil has built, all the ugly ways he's closed himself off from the world. But it doesn't matter what she thinks. He controls Mirkwood with an iron fist, and nothing can be done to change his mind. The more he's questioned, the further in he digs his heels. He will not listen to reason because in his eyes there is no reason for betrayal. It matters not who she's trying to help. He forbade anyone to leave, and she left anyway. Nothing she can say will help her case. Legolas is his only child, his beloved son. Tariel is a foundling, protected only by Thranduil's good grace. Without his permission, she has nothing. The woods and the streams of Mirkwood, the thick canopies where sunlight filters through to dance on small flying things, gone. Every beloved footpath, every twig and seed, forbidden. With one word, she has been sliced away from dense arboreal mystery, from dark and wormy loam, from bobbing springtime flowers. Banished. Calithil is cropping grass nearby, delicately the hardy greens from the stony soil, and Tariel leaves Legolas to go stand by her side. As a rule, she's never liked horses. They're not practical for forest travel, and she's much faster on foot. But suddenly, she meets the warm, steady bulk of another living creature. Healy will be in Erebor by now, reunited with his kin, welcomed back into their loving, enthusiastic embrace. He's a prince. They would not cast him out. She takes the runestone from her pocket and clutches it to her heart. She presses her face into the mare's neck and starts to weep, huge, ugly sobs that start somewhere beneath her spine and tear their way out like a malevolent fetus. Breath is stolen by grief and mucus. her entire body turned inside out and wrung dry. Calethea gives a sympathetic snort, turning to waffle in Tariel's hair. She feels like she's drowning or dying, trapped and suffocating in the circumstances of the world. She doesn't know how long she weeps. When she finally comes back to herself, swollen, damp, and hiccuping, she goes and sits back beside Legolas, scrubbing at her eyes with a palm. "When did you last sleep, Melonin?" he asks quietly. She can't remember. There was an hour or two in Lake Town last night. Was it only last night? But before that was a marathon run from Mirkwood. She's suddenly aware that she is utterly exhausted, heartsick, and spent. "Sleep," says Legolas. "I'll keep watch." She tries, but all she sees are smoke and flames, and a single, stocky, beloved shadow slowly moving away. They start out before daybreak, and by sunrise, the terrain turns jagged and burned. Fireglass gleams darkly under a sun clouded with dark smoke and haze, ugly hills like broken metal rising steep and sharp around them. These are the Grey Mountains, the arid Mithrim, a place she's only heard of in songs and tales. She thinks about the deep, tangled green of Mirkwood, and her heart contracts painfully in her chest. Legolas seems to know exactly where to go. He guides the mare around the worst of the debris, following what could only charitably be called a path. She wants to ask how he knows this land, but the air is acrid and breathing hurts. Eventually, he turns off the path and rides into a small hollow tucked against a sharp slope. The mare's ears flick back and forth, eyes wide, her nostrils flaring. Legolas reaches down with a calming hand, whispering something into her ear, and for a moment, the quivering subsides. Tariel wishes her own fear could be assuaged so easily. They leave the horses at the base of a hill, gingerly avoiding the spikes of slag and dully gleaming fireglass as they climb. Tariel has never been anywhere so black and dead. It is unlike Mirkwood in every way, the opposite of everything good and alive and well. She feels the wrongness of it in her marrow, a sense like bitter fever or the harsh slip of steel against stone. At the top, Legolas crouches just below the crest, and Tariel huddles beside him. Beyond the valley below, a huge structure rises up, a collection of jagged vertical plates with edges like an orc blade. In the filtered sunlight, the landscape is dull and bloody, the air smelling of smoke and bitter iron. "Gundabad," she says hoarsely. It has to be. She feels the evil of it in the roots of her teeth, a hot, inescapable nausea. Her fingers go to the pocket with the runestone and its reassuring weight. What lies beyond? An old enemy, Legolas says, the ancient kingdom of Angmar. She knows that name. It's one of the most infamous names in elven lore, and she can't suppress a shudder. Never once has she imagined she'd come here, to this place that twists like glowing chains around her throat. It is diseased, poisoned, perverted, held in smoldering captivity and denied the sweet release of death. This fortress was once its stronghold, Legolas says. It is where they kept their great armories, where they forged their weapons of war. "A light," she hisses. "I saw movement." They peer into the gloom, past the drifting clouds of noxious smoke. Somewhere in the fortress, a flame flickers and quickly dies. Something is alive in Angband, if alive is the word that can be used, and whatever it is, Tariel and Legolas must venture in and find it. If she doubted the reason for their journey, she can doubt it no longer. "We wait for the cover of night," Legolas says decisively, and then more quietly, "It is a fell place, Tariel. In another age, our people waged war on those lands." Her mouth is dry. She can feel the weight of the slain in the air, the thousands of immortal beings laid out and bled dry onto the ground. Everything smells of ash and primeval, metallic rot. Tariel realizes Legolas is looking at her, his face somber in a way she's never seen on her bright, sun-loving friend. "My mother died there." Her heart goes still in her chest. "My father does not speak of it," Legolas goes on. "There is no grave, no memory, nothing." In the 600 years she spent as Thranduil's ward, not once has anyone mentioned Thranduil's wife. By the time she was coherent enough to realize the absence, Tariel understood instinctively that it was something never to be discussed. Thranduil is fierce, capricious, stark, easy to rage, and distant as the moon. She suddenly realizes how much Legolas must have inherited from his mother, the warmth that comes as easily as a smile. Her vision goes hot and blurry. He knows exactly what this disclosure means to her. There's no place of honor for her own family, nothing more than bare, scorched earth, probably gone to moss with the centuries. She has no tokens, no physical reminder. Even the memories she carries are as blank as the color of the stars. This is why Legolas disobeyed his father. He was never truly following Tauriel. He pursues the orcs because once a horde of such monsters tore apart his family. She knows nothing of his mother, not her name, not her family, nor how she came to stand by Thranduil's side. All she sees is a devoted son and the execution of a long-desired vengeance. Legolas could have left Tauriel in the ruin of Lake Town. This is bare fact. He's fast enough and clever enough that he could have followed the orcs himself. He could easily be here alone, but instead he chose to circle back and collect her instead. She wonders if she'd gone back to Thranduil when Legolas found her on the river. Would her friend have left anyway? There have been plenty of orc incursions into Mirkwood before. No, he loves her, and her flight was convenient. He could have pressed harder for their return. He chose not to. And what of Thranduil? A grieving king could rightly claim revenge. Instead, when he lost his queen to the awful place, he closed his borders to any who might approach. A wild howl of fury suddenly blooms in Tauriel's chest. He knows exactly how much pain lies beyond Mirkwood, and instead of extending a sympathetic hand, he's chosen to turn away from those who most need help. Mirkwood is rich in resources. It would have been nothing to aid Thorin in his quest. The people of Lake Town did so without hesitation with far, far less. Thorin's rage is not misplaced. Tauriel may be banished, but now she knows she will never be satisfied to return. All right, that was Starlight Chapter 7 by Sacrifice Them to the Squid. Like I said, I was surprised that we've gotten this far. I mean, I figured we were still on Chapter 5 or Chapter 6, but nope, we're on Chapter 7, which it kind of makes me a little sad that the story's about to wrap up, but at the same time, that just means that you guys can go out there and find Sacrifice to the Squid stuff and read up on the next one, which is called Sunrise, and it is amazing. Got the heartache and the danger and the adventure and the love and just all the warm, gooey, sad feelings that you could ever want. Anyway, well, I'm hoping next week we'll have a little treat for you. If not, it will just still be me reading either my fanfic or somebody else's fanfic. And until the next episode, I hope you all have a good morning, a good day, a good evening, wherever you are at in your day. You know, go take a nap. Just feel good. I hope you guys are doing all right. Until next time, see ya.